Hello, everyone. It is so good to be here talking to you. I owe you a video just to share everything. There has been so much going on that I want to share with you. And so I got three topics for today, which is COVID. I want to talk to you a little bit about what that's meant for me. I know all of us have been challenged by this pandemic, but I want to share my personal impressions. Black Lives Matter, amazing how that's kind of expanded this year above others since the murder of George Floyd. And then the last thing is my personal journey. I want to share with you some new things that are happening in my life, that are really rounding me out as a person. And so I want to share that journey with you. And I'll be continuously sharing that journey. I have some new things planned for you. So try to hang out to the end of the video. What I have with me is my Microsoft Teams cup that we got. We got this as a part of our work from home kit. And inside this cup is tea, and the tea is hot. And so I've decided that when this tea is done, then we are done talking. So that will limit how long I talk. And feel free to fast forward, hit stop, or whatever it is that makes you happy. I'm looking forward to talking to you, and I hope you'll listen. So the first thing I want to say as I wait for my tea to get a little cooler is I want to talk about COVID first. So early this year, early March, is when I began working from home permanently. And I think that's the case for most US employees at Microsoft. We began working from home, especially in the Puget Sound area, so main campus, and the affiliate buildings around there. We started working from home around March, and it was interesting how this kind of transition. So I think in the beginning of working from home, we were all like, hey, this is kind of novel, no traffic, work from home, uh, less less scheduling issues. Basically you get to your computer in your house and you're off to the races to start working. So it's kind of easier from a travel perspective. It was a little bit also comforting because with all the news about the pandemic, everybody's a little scared. Like, okay, am I going to get sick? Just to point out some things that preceded COVID for me that made that even accentuated is that in 2019, I found out that I have diabetes, and I found out that I have hypertension. And this is all because, I'm going to be honest with you, I needed to put myself first. I needed to take care of my health. I needed to go to the gym. I needed to take care of me. And I think 2018, 2019, I got off track on my own personal health. And so it kind of declined in 2019 to the day around, I guess it was around October, that I found out that I have diabetes and hypertension. So that was a rough end of the year in 2019. Another thing that happened at the rough end of 2019 is I lost one of my two cats. So when I moved here, so my job moved me to Washington when I first came here in 2005. I moved here from California, and I was working for a company called MWH, and it was a construction company. And well, I would say construction management. So they were like the program managers for big construction projects, dams, bridges, tunnels, wastewater, that kind of thing. And I moved to Washington because they wanted me to do some integration with Primavera and SharePoint in support of some Boeing work. And so that's my first introduction to California. And when I came in 2005, I brought these two cats with me. They were rescues from California, and their name is Cole and Bizou. Cole was pure black, so she got the name Coal, Cole. And then Bizou is French for kisses, Bisous, because Bizou would reach up and give you a kiss. And it was just a habit that he had as a kitten that got him his name. And so these cats came with me. They were about a year old when they came, both of them being rescues, as they were brand new kittens born in the street, rescued from the street. And they got in the car with me, and we drove all the way to Kirkland, which is the first place that I lived when I moved to Washington. They've been with me ever since. So when you're with a pet for that long, they become family. I think many of you can relate to this. And so losing Cole at the end of 2019 was difficult. Cole also was a surprise loss. So it's funny, it's not funny, it kind of, I should say ironic. Bizou was rather sick, and we kind of picked up on Bizou losing some weight, but we didn't know why. And so the vet would check them both. It's like I don't take one to the vet and not the other. So I would let the vet check them both. And so Cole was fine as far as I knew. I saw no signs of illness. But the day after the vet examined her, he called me the next day at work and said, you have to take Cole to the hospital right away. She's in kidney failure. 0 to 90, long story short, 0 to 90 in one day. By the end of the day, Cole was gone. And that was hard, that was really hard. So then we move into 2020 with health challenges, a little bit of grief from the cat died, and also some impacts on my family side started as soon as COVID became a reality. In other words, I think to some degree, we might have been in denial in the United States, but then when that reality kind of hit in, I had family impacts right away, both friends and family, where people were losing their jobs or because of by April, May, by May, I had friends on the East Coast and family on the East Coast impacted by COVID. And I don't know how many of you know this, but most of my friends and family are on the East Coast because that's where I kind of grew up, went through school. My first jobs were on Wall Street in New York. I actually had 5 friends in the towers on 9/11. So I come from the East Coast, and so have lived was raised in kind of Kingston, Massachusetts. And then New York was where I lived my first years of being at work, after school. And so, so I think I was just going with that, is that most of the people who've known me most of my life, they are over there, right? I think of my best friend, Naja, she's over there. I think of other people who are like really close to me that I keep in touch with, like Woodley, over there, right? Woodley is a very old friend of mine. Some of you may know from, I think he came to one of the conferences in California with me when we were at, I think, Disney. And he and I have known each other and loved each other for, I guess, somewhere around 25 years. He's over there. He lost 2 family members to COVID as well. So you had this situation where it seemed to be a lot of grief going on, grief, worry, all that stuff. And then in the midst of it all, I fell in love with Teams. And you may have noticed that as, towards the end of 2019 and 2020, the beginning of 2020, I was passionate, and I still am, by the way, about adaptive cards and Teams. I was just kind of like, the ideas of what you can do with adaptive cards and Teams was coming to me at night in my dreams. I mean, I was like crazy in love with adaptive cards. And so I helped on the Power Platform in the Power Automate team. I helped to really nurture adaptive cards because I think in my opinion, it was one of those tools you could morph and evolve and make it anything you want. But that feature is what kind of made the connection between me, the Power Platform, and Microsoft Teams. And I started to fall in love with the whole idea of Teams Hub. Like Teams would be the place you could bring everything together. And here's my Power Platform solution. Here's my workflow. Here's my Teams channel. And it was crazy. I kind of fell in love with Teams alongside adaptive cards and some of the work I was doing with Harish, who finally, kind of moved over to Power Automate himself. And so it was just one of those things where there was so much going on the end of 2019. And I think the best thing of the year was probably adaptive cards at the end of the year. Was probably adaptive cards and kind of watching Teams evolve. Teams was a big win with me because I love simple, easy solutions. You shouldn't need to read a book to know how to use a tool. The moment you need a lot of reading and a lot of documentation, that's when I kind of get distracted, right? I like those tools that are simple and self-evident, and don't require a lot of, I don't know, we've been using this word lightly, is coding. That there's some evolution there too, I have to share with you. Because since I'm in Teams now, I'm doing quite a bit of work with developers and partners, SIs, and it's got me attracted to coding again. That I had that happen in my life somewhere at the end of the 1990s, beginning of 2000s. I had this coding thing that I wanted to do. But I kind of, it passed, and I went into collaborative solutions and power user solutions. And I think starting out with Power Query, Power BI, I kind of got away from code. But now that I see the Microsoft Graph APIs for Teams, and I see the SDK for Teams, and all the tools that's like built into Visual Studio Code, it's like, wow, I'm kind of back to being attracted to it. So, I'm thinking about going back to school and learning a little bit about coding. If I'm not sure what school is right now in COVID. Is that an online class? Is that an on-demand class? Is that some type of social distancing at a local college? 100% sure what school is right now. I'm sure a lot of you are also kind of adjusting your definitions of things. But I am kind of attracted to picking up my developer skills. I like to build, right? And I think this is one thing I've learned about myself while working at Microsoft as a PM from the beginning to now. I've kind of realized that I really treasure two things the most. One, those real people interactions, working with people, talking to people, helping them solve problems, whether it be remotely, in person, on the phone. Just kind of love people, and helping people use technologies. I tend to have my favorite technologies, but I stay very non-partial, because I think the entire Microsoft stack is phenomenal. And I think all of us should take advantage of as much of it as we can, because it's an opportunity. Every piece of it is an opportunity. Every service is an opportunity. So I'm one of those early adopters. I grab it all. I want to learn it all. I want to do it all, which leads to some problems in balance. But I have realized that the people part is really important. But in parallel to the people part for me is the ability to build real solutions. I like the idea of building no-code solutions, so I'm still very much a power addict, and I will always be a power addict. And if you talk to my team right now, they'll tell you, yep, she's still a power addict. I have a passion for these Power Platform tools because it's amazing how much you can do in the time you can do it. In the month of August, I actually built 3 different solutions using the Power Platform. Now, we're only going to end up using the last one because the other 2 were like pilots, or I would say they were trials. Like, let's try this. And then we decided, let's move on to this 3rd thing. But I was able to build 3 solutions, one involving Microsoft Forms, one involving Power Apps, Dynamics, and Teams, and one involving, and the last one, which we're going to move forward with, which is an integration of Dynamics, CRM, Teams as a platform, and a little bit of SharePoint integration as well. So kind of bringing all those things together. There was a moment we actually had added project too. So it was kind of like, everybody in the family, let's come in here together and help us solve this challenge. And so that was really fun to do. And I was doing that in parallel to being a PM, which, you know, PMs are coordinators, they're problem solvers, they're unblockers, they're reminders to everyone of what needs to be done, of what's being done. They're communication experts. There's a lot of things that a program manager at Microsoft is. And some of those pieces are project management, and some of those pieces are project management. So I'm sorry, product and project management. You see it all in a program manager. And it can be quite difficult to do all of that and yet still do some building. I'm fortunate, though, I have always had managers that support my technical side. Because if I didn't, I'd probably feel stifled in one of the 2 areas. So I wouldn't want to be like 100% build, because then I'd miss the people. And I wouldn't want to be 100% people, because then I'd miss the build. And so fortunately, the manager that I have now and the leadership I have now is supporting those 2 sides of what I love, which is making me really happy where I am. The leadership and the management under for teams is amazing. I mean, I don't know if all of you realize just how young Teams is. Go look it up. Teams is a very young product, yet its growth is off the hook. Like, and when I started on the team, I was asking everybody, what do you think the reason is that Teams took off? And I got a lot of answers, but I think the one that I kind of want to hold on to based on what's around me is the passion for helping others, for keeping people connected, especially despite COVID, but also providing a platform that's flexible, that allows people to build their own story, that allows people to, just like the Power Platform, to connect to whatever they're using without partiality. And I really love that. If you look in the Team store, you'll see that there's all kinds of partners in there, even those that you might consider as a competitor. They're partners and they're in the Team store. And it's pretty amazing to me how that works. And so the one thing that was pretty challenging, though, as you're in the midst of a pandemic, when you're changing teams or when you're joining a new team during a pandemic, it means you might not have that face-to-face. So I was able to go through interview loops to actually be offered the position and to kick off my first 3 months without ever actually being in the same room with anybody on my team. And I don't know if anybody has, I'm sure many of you have stopped to think about what that means. We have people on our team right now that went through NEO, which at Microsoft is short for New Employee Orientation. They went through that remotely via Teams, as opposed to historically or traditionally, NEO is a big event. Everybody comes into the same room. We have executives come in and talk to us. We eat lunch, we eat breakfast. We walk from room to room signing papers. NEO is a pretty big event. And as a new employee, you're pretty excited that day. And so you're meeting a lot of people. And I think mostly at the end of NEO, a year goes by after that, and then they reunite you. They bring you back together the same team that joined on the same day. They bring you back together for a reunion, and you talk about kind of what your first year was like at Microsoft. So Neo was one of my favorite experiences at Microsoft. And so it was interesting to see new employees come in during COVID and how Microsoft replaced Neo with some very exciting online experiences that could be just as memorable as the Neo that I experienced in person with the other people joining Microsoft at the same time as me, with the other, I'm not drinking my tea, the other executives that were in the room during Neo. So interesting to think about how COVID, you can change teams, you can get hired, you can work for a team, you can be efficient on that team. It's not like you can't work well. We haven't skipped a beat. I'm serious. Like, it's amazing how much we've been able to do. So it's challenging though. And I think those of you that, may be in a company and you were there before COVID, one tip I might give you is think about your new employees that came in during COVID. Give them a little extra love and attention, because it's not the most obvious thing to join a team that you have not met, I'm sure it's happened before, but now it's happening like consistently across the board in large technology companies. So if you have peers on your team and they're like joining the team during COVID, reach out to them for virtual coffees, play a couple of games with them, turn on your camera when you can think about it, and hold up your glass of wine, maybe even after work. Let them feel part of the team more than just the meetings, because unfortunately that is what can happen. Because we're all working from home and because we're all, kind of somewhat isolated, our workday can be one long suite of meetings. And for newer employees or people joining your team, that's not the most fun, right? I know personally, one of the biggest things I miss at Microsoft is the cafeteria. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but things happened in the cafeteria. You ran into people you hadn't seen for a while. You tasted something new. You talked to a chef. You met someone new in the corner that you chose to sit in, or your team came together and ate at a long table. I mean, so many things we take for granted in that everyday life we had pre-COVID that made life at Microsoft so awesome. And so we have to kind of find replacements and strengthen each other so that we still feel like we're working in a great place, and that goes for any company, because I know all companies can be great places to work at. So that's the first thing I wanted to call out about COVID and what I've observed at Microsoft. Changing teams during COVID, and then also recognizing new employees joining the team and having new Neo experiences was kind of a big, kind of a learning thing for me as I watched that happen. Another thing that people take for granted or they don't recognize is the underlying, I guess I would say, I don't know how to say the right word, so I'm just going to say stress that results from COVID. And that stress, because you continue to work, because you don't stop, really, you keep moving forward, even though you might be at home or wherever you might be, the stress is still underneath. And I know Microsoft has been awesome at providing us assistance. And what I mean by that is some webinars on how to manage our time, how to be balanced, in addition to our insurance covering any help we might need if we need to talk to somebody. Because many of us may be dealing with impacts, either deaths from COVID in the family, in our friendships, like myself, or they just might be dealing with the fears related to COVID, and the loneliness for especially people who, like myself, for instance, are single. And so that singleness in a time of social distancing can contribute to loneliness. And then don't worry, I don't feel lonely. I actually grew up an only child. So what's hard for me is a lot of a consistent amount of people around me. I kind of need to recharge because I've always kind of grown up very independent and alone because I was an only child. And it's not that I was an only child from my mom. It's just that my mom married a second husband. She had already had 3 children, so I have half brothers and sisters. Um, most are deceased, but I grew up by myself because they were outside of the house. They were gone. They were either with the first husband or they were big enough to be gone, right? So there's like 16 years difference between myself and the next sibling. So I think, where was I going with that? I just wanted to say that be aware that there's underlying factors that every employee is dealing with, and that contributes to their ability to work-life balance and their ability to do things. And so the good news about that is I had a lot of support. I had support from my friends. I had support from my work. Microsoft is awesome in supporting us through COVID. We have full insurance. We also have full ability to get help. We have people available for us. And so, wow, Microsoft is doing a great job of supporting us during COVID. And then came Black Lives Matter. So the video that went viral where the officer killed George came at a really bad time for the people I know and the family that I know. And while it's always a bad time to see somebody murdered, but let me explain what I mean. There was grief because of sick family members who had passed. There was a loss of work because maybe they were in either a restaurant situation, a bar situation, or some type of construction work. So basically, COVID caused them to lose their job. And what that means is that now I'm not only grieving people I've lost maybe, or I'm not only grieving because maybe I'm scared, but now this video that goes viral, now I add rage, right? Because you can obviously see this is unfair, this is murder. It's happening live on the screen. The police officer was not immediately arrested. The other officers did not react. So it provoked this rage. And I think the rage on top of the grief, on top of the being broke, on top of the fact that you might be even losing your apartment. I mean, there's so many factors that were happening at the same time. The good news is, though, I mean, in all of this, I can say the good news is that a lot of the things that were happening and the reaction of the public from all sides contributed to change, and we are seeing change. It may not be giant steps, but we are definitely seeing change. Like what I have seen happen in 2020 far exceeds anything I've seen happen in the past 7-10 years in relation to Black Lives Matter. So it's funny, or I should say ironic. So when I say funny, I usually mean ironic. It's ironic that a lot of the bad things that happen usually have a I guess a silver lining on the other side. Yeah. As far as Black Lives Matter, just kind of going back to life at Microsoft, Microsoft was amazing about that. Immediately, our leadership took a position. When I saw Microsoft actually celebrate the June 19th, and actually, we actually talked about things on that day. Like, work was not normal that day for most of us. We were talking, we were thinking, and it's like, wow, you know, so I've been working a very long time. I've never really noticed a company take a stand like that. And that was really encouraging to me. So there was a lot of fear with Black Lives Matter as well, because I was worried about young people. You know, you could go out to these riots, and I'm not saying rioting is wrong at all. I'm just saying there was dangers in that, right? My father marched with Martin Luther King, and I'm sure that there were dangers in that as well. But I'm one of those kind of mom figures that worries about the young people in my family and my friends, and I don't want them to put themselves in danger. So I was busy on the phone saying, okay, here's how you want to protect yourself. Watch out for groups of people with backpacks, because it could mean that potentially there's something in that backpack that they're going to throw, and you don't want to be in their line of sight. And, you know, so I'm giving all these tips about how to safely protest, you know, like, how do you protect yourself from the dangers that protesting and rioting can present, and yet still be able to have your voice be heard. And so, of course, I'm worried about everybody. I'm worried about everybody in New York and Maryland and DC. I'm worried about people in Connecticut. And I have a friend in Connecticut that, I don't know, I think she totally missed the whole idea of working from home. And I was worried about her because she was going from her house to her job. And I didn't know what would happen in between, you know? And so, and she's like family to me. And so I'm worried about everybody, but, you know, I'm still going, I'm still moving, just like I'm sure you all are as well. And so we learn to balance these things, and we learn how much we can achieve even under chaos. Another kind of silver lining I've observed with COVID is that the planet has been healing, right? Less problems with the ozone layer because there's less flights, less cars on the road. The water is kind of cleaning up in those districts that are high tourists, you know, and so to a certain degree, the planet has been doing some healing while we've been challenged with the pandemic, which I think is pretty cool. All right, let's get to the last thing. Here's the last thing I want to tell you about, and that's my journey. Okay, so in all of this, what's my journey? So in for the remainder of 2020, my goal is to really master the collaborative components of Microsoft Teams and optimize how the Power Platform works there. That's always been a passion for me. And that's something, I'm being honest with you, you probably all know this, I do it on the weekend, like, because I find it fun to make these apps and these workflows that can solve problems. But I also want to know this SDK. So by probably March of next year, I want to be, comfortable with the SDK. And so I've started to do some, like, I've blocked out time on my calendar for learning that kind of stuff. I started with App Studio, but then I just spoke to a really awesome guy on the engineering team yesterday who showed me all the new stuff that kind of is awesome for building and publishing apps on Teams. So he got me all excited to start using the Teams toolkit, which you can add to Visual Studio Code or Visual Studio, and it does a whole bunch of cool stuff. So that's the thing. But you know, what's at the very top of my list? There's two things, and I'm going to ask you to hold me accountable. Okay, I'm going to say there's three. Thing number one is I need to focus on my health. And that means being balanced, not working 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., not missing out in exercise. FYI, I found a new way to exercise. And some of you know this, but I've gotten crazy about VR. I'm using an Oculus Quest and a Samsung Odyssey, and use them for virtual reality exercise. I do Beat Saber, I do Racket NX, I do the boxing. And so it's given me a way to kind of exercise and have fun, even though I'm home most of the time. My friend Jen, who lives like about 10 minutes from my house, We meet up and we can walk the Sammamish River because I live not too far from the Sammamish River. So we do a little walk on there so that we walk regularly. And I try to walk at least a half an hour a day, which sounds like not enough, and it isn't enough. It's just what I can commit to. So what I'm doing is I'm being careful only to commit to what I can achieve so that I don't add stress on my own shoulders. Sometimes we pile stress on ourselves because our own personal standards are higher than they need to be. So I'm being realistic about what I can achieve at work. I'm being realistic about what I can commit to from a health perspective and what I can commit to from a family perspective. And I'm trying to keep that balanced. So that's commitment number one. Commitment number two that I want to tell you about is basically getting back on YouTube and sharing what I'm learning on Teams. So as I become this expert that I want to become, like I had the same goal with Power Ups, and then I had that goal with Power Automate. I set a goal to be an expert in X amount of time, like 3 to 6 months. So Teams is on that list now. And so as I continue to grow in the Power Platform, because they're constantly adding so much, I'm adding that idea of becoming a SME for Microsoft Teams. I'm not yet that, I feel like I'm very comfortable, but I'm definitely not yet where I want to be when it comes to knowledge around Microsoft Teams. So that's something I do in my personal time because I think it's worth it for me to be technically strong in the product that I support. And so that's commitment number two. And then commitment number three is, and so part of number two, by the way, is at least a bi-weekly. So so when I say bi-weekly, I really mean every other week. I'm going to post like 15 minutes. What did I learn this week? Right? And so you'll get these really short videos that I will post on my personal channel that will just talk about my journey. It's not a desire of mine to be a marketing expert for any product, but I want to share my journey. I want to share with you my personal impressions. Usually what you'll notice is that when I love something, I talk about it a lot, and I'll talk about it anywhere you'll listen to me, right? But I want to start sharing the things I love most. And so every other week, I'll post a short 15 minutes. What did I learn last week? And probably the first video will be what have I learned in my first April, May, June, July, August, my first 5 months in Teams. All right, so lots to share there. And then finally, I want to get back connected to the people that I love. I've lost some connections just because of everything going on. So I want to get back connecting to the people that I care about, people that I love. So you might see me reach out to you personally because I miss you, and so don't be surprised if you get a text or an email or a tweet, direct message that says, hey, how you doing? I want to reconnect. Because I don't want to be disconnected from the people that really have helped me grow and the people I really appreciate, which is you. So I think that's all I'm going to cover. I did not drink my tea like I promised. I should have been drinking my tea, but I was too busy talking. I just want to make sure I covered everything. So my impressions on COVID. I think you heard the pros, the cons, and the advantage. My impressions on Black Lives Matter. I think you feel what I'm feeling there, and I think the biggest thing for me is being able to speak about this at work, which is huge. I must say that my team, one thing I appreciate about them is they accept me as I am. They don't judge me. I'm not like a typical person, and maybe that's even a stupid statement because what is a typical person? But I tend to swim upstream, and what I mean by that is I like to introduce new concepts. I like to do things slightly different than they have been done. I'm not one of those people who jumps online and follows. I tend to like to bring up new ways of doing things and start new trends and innovate new possibilities. And that can be challenging in the midst of persistent change. But it's me. It's me. I like to pioneer, and pioneering involves introducing change and disrupting things. And one thing I have to say is my team is very open to that. They're open to my new ideas. They're open to one of the things I really love is that anybody on our team can have an idea that's brand new, and the whole team will kind of rally around that person and make that idea better. This almost brings tears to my eyes. It's not a competition. Who's making an idea more than the other, or who's better than the other, or who. We don't have that on my current team. It's more about let's do the best we can do as a team, and we rally around each other and we help each other. And I'm learning whole new ways of collaboration because of that. I just love it, and I'm not sure why this is surprising to me. It's definitely not. Please don't assume that I mean I haven't seen that in other groups I'm in. I'm just saying that in the group I'm in right now, that's a highlight. Like every team you go to, you say, okay, the highlight of this team is blam, or bang. The highlight of the team I'm on right now is their cohesiveness as a team, and their ability to help one another, and our leaderships being open to our transparency, right? Because I'm very transparent. You never kind of have to figure out what's Audrey thinking, right? If I'm for something, you'll know it. If I'm against it, you'll know it. And that's what I consider an asset about being an authentically me. I express what I'm thinking, and I express it with respect, and I respect it. I express it usually with something to support it as well. It's not just opinionated. But that is me. I will not align to a political way of thinking where someone shouldn't say this or someone shouldn't go against the grain. I think that innovation comes from speaking your mind, opening up new perspectives, and disrupting things a little bit. And I think it's that disruption that brings forth digital transformation. And digital transformation is not just a goal outside of Microsoft. It's a goal inside of Microsoft as well. So we walk that talk. So thank you for listening to this short, what's going on in Audrey's life. Hold me accountable for my health goals. If you are a VR fan and you like virtual reality, my alias, you can just hit me up at, if you know me, hit my text me, right? You know my phone number. Text me, I'll give you my VR alias. We'll connect, and then maybe we can play some games online. I know VR has helped me get back in the room with people who are far away from me, because we can meet in these rooms with our avatars, and we can play games and we can chat. I had a great experience with Raven, where Raven and I just went into a virtual office and we chatted for like an hour. And I want you to know that we were like face to face from an avatar perspective, but it felt like we were in the same room. And that was awesome. So I'm kind of pretty passionate about VR and kind of worried about that, because when I start getting passionate, it usually means there's a special attraction there, which could show up in my career somehow. But I'm really excited about virtual reality. And I have done Teams meetings in virtual reality as well. So you might actually see me do a couple of podcasts from there, just because I think it's a really cool experience. Thanks for listening. Take care. I promise to keep in touch. Reach out if you want to reconnect. And I wish that you're also evaluating all of the things that are happening in your life, and you're finding some really beautiful silver linings to the challenges that you're facing, and you're supporting the people who need support. Those new employees that may have never stood in front of you, or maybe you need to support a family member that's lost their job or their apartment, or maybe you just need to take care of you in brand new ways because the old ways are not available. I suggest you do all those things and more. And I'm sure 2021 is going to be a very exciting year. Um, and just as 2020 has been. And I'm going to leave you at that. And then I'm going to go heat my tea in the microwave. And we'll talk again soon. Take care. And remember that, this is real. I care about you. If you don't hear from me, it's just because I'm in craziness. But I will be back, and you'll get tips from me again, and you'll hear about my journey, and I'll stay connected. All right. You guys take care. I'll be talking to you soon. Bye-bye.